Okay, I think it's a great time to get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Avo Automation's webinar on how to lead your industry with quality software. In this webinar, we'll be sharing exactly how we have helped CNA Financial, a Fortune 500 insurance customer of ours, transition from project-centric to product-centric application testing. And to be more specific, how we helped them modernize their IT through agile testing, which has led to faster times to market for their applications and has enabled them to offer a great customer experience. Now, just a few housekeeping points before we get started. We've put you all on mute to ensure for no disturbances during the webinar and so that you can take the most away from it. Now, that's not to say at all that we don't want to hear from you. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to note them down or pop them in the chat, and we'll address them during the Q&A session. Also, we'll be having a poll question during the webinar, and we really encourage all of you to participate. The reason we're doing this is that it'll help you get a good understanding of the challenges that your peers face with test automation. Also, as a gesture of our appreciation for you taking your valuable time to be here with us today, each of you will be receiving an Amazon gift card via email for attending. And also be sure to wait through right to the end of the webinar because we have a great offer that could really help your business's test automation. Now, just to quickly walk you through our agenda, our Chief Marketing Officer, Annalisa Camarillo, will be taking us through a brief introduction of who Avo Automation is and what we do. This will give you a good base of understanding for the information to come. Next, our CEO, Vidur Amin, will be walking us through what our customer was trying to do and how Avo partnered with them to deliver on their transformation journey. Next, our head of customer success, Chris Horn, will take us through a detailed demonstration of the pain points that CNA Financial faced and how Avo helped solve them. Here, you'll get a concrete understanding of what's really possible through intelligent test automation and a view of how you could apply it to your business. And lastly, we'll end with a Q&A session, which is our favorite part of the webinar. So again, please make sure to note down any of your questions or pop them in the chat, and we'll address them during this time. And without further ado, I'd like to hand the stage over to Lisa, who will be taking us through who Avo Automation is and what we do.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Armand. Let me also give a warm welcome to our attendees. I hope everyone is staying safe and is at peace during these challenging times. COVID has prompted the move to a more digitally embedded society, making the need for quality software even bigger today. The latest OverOps survey found that 50% of software engineers say they deal with a customer impact issue every month due to quality. And often we get this question from our customers, so how do we address this? We believe the answer is to automate software testing, thereby maintaining quality, accelerating software delivery, and allowing QA teams to spend more time sharing ideas for software improvement. That's the part that's most critical about what automation helps teams do, and that's it liberates them from the manual work and enables them to work more innovatively and creatively to help solve business problems. So who is Avo? From day one, we've leveraged the IT and testing community to build our automation solutions, and you'll see this reflected in how our customers rate us on peer review sites like G2 and Gartner. That said, we're very excited that this year we placed in the G2 top performer quadrant for test automation. And you're going to see here when we get through our customer story as well as our demo, why that's so. And we're continuing to hone our solutions. We know it's never done based on customer feedback. Avo has been working with some of the largest enterprise companies in the Fortune 500. I'm talking about companies like CNA, which you'll hear more about today, Voya Financial, and Bank of Oklahoma. That's just a few, but there are many. Everything we've designed into our solution has been compelled by a customer need. and we continue to add more capabilities to enable customer innovation. Just a couple more things that I'll point out here. We're the only company that has integrated process discovery with test automation, so that when you're going from documenting a process, auto-documenting a process, you can easily work to automate that process from beginning to end. And we're one of the first to be certified for both SAP and Oracle applications. So that was a little bit about us. Now let's talk about our customers and what we've learned from them. This is the typical journey we see for quality assurance teams. And this is going to sound familiar to you. Not much is automated. And if there is automation, it's often disjointed across a number of tools and also processes and technologies. Naturally, all environments use technologies that are specific to their industry. And so we can just imagine, and we've seen environments like this, and we'll show you how that's true for CNA. Number of technologies are needed. Sometimes they're not interconnected. Sometimes those points where they're integrated don't necessarily work as efficiently as expected. Automation can solve this. And a recent stat shows that only 16% of companies can actually do testing end-to-end, can actually do automated testing end-to-end for a full business process. And we've managed to do this for CNA, and we're gonna show you how that works. As challenges amass, quality and speed decline, kind of stating the obvious there. When customers reach this point of low return, we help them rethink their quality engineering approach with automation. We've proven that a modern agile delivery process requires intelligence, simplicity, and speed. All of this amounts to rapid delivery of the keyword here, quality software. That is really what we're trying to get to, is not just speed to market with any type of software, but it's quality software that wins in the end and also helps you stay more competitive. Intelligent speaks to the inherent AI capability that enables faster defect tracking, auto scheduling. Many of those benefits that you hear that come out of automation are really delivered exponentially with AI. It is AI that serves as the brain in that automation that helps you achieve more capability. Simplicity means that testers can test software without the hassle of coding. Avo Automation is no code, a no code software that really helps you achieve efficiency. And the third is speed, which stands for speed of software delivery. Rapid delivery needs rapid test automation. It's not to say that there are others, because we know that there are others like scale, and we can deliver on scale and many of those other elements that quality engineering teams think about as well. And we're happy to talk to you about what those elements are and how we can help you deliver them. So how do we help our customers? We are a full automation suite vendor. So we deliver process discovery, also traditional robotic process automation, and then test automation. And our platform is simple to use, no code. You're going to find this across our products. And then we also, as I mentioned, can auto-generate web test cases and digital assistants with a single click. But today we're going to focus on Avo Assure. Avo Assure is our test automation platform. And some of the cool things that you're going to see today is how simple it is to use, the fact that it's no code, the brain of the platform, which is AI driven, that supports over 200 technologies. And then we get to show you that auto creation of test cases is driven through AI. So I'm excited for you to see that with the story that we're going to share for CNA Financial. And with that, Armand, over to you for our polling question.
Thank you, Lisa, and I hope this gives everybody context about who we are as an organization. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please just pop them in the chat and we'll address them during the Q&A. And now we wanted to move on to the poll question, where we wanted to know your thoughts on what is your biggest test automation pain point. And there will be a poll survey that will pop up on your screen any moment now. And we will keep this open for about 45 seconds. Here it is. So please be sure to add in your answer. Now, just to run you through some of the options, it could be that your application testing is manual and time consuming, or it could be that your testing process is outdated, or even that you're unable to test across multiple applications, or that your test automation solution doesn't do everything you need it to do. Or it could be a combination of the first three options. So we'll leave this open for about 10 more seconds. Please do pop in your answer, and then we'll summarize the results together. Okay, thank you all for participating. We're just going to pop up the results right now. Okay, wonderful. And as we can see, a lot of you are saying, about 32% of you are saying that your application testing is currently manual and time consuming. About 20% of you are saying that you're unable to test, you're unable to automate testing across multiple applications. And 25% of you are saying it's a combination of A, B, and C. Now, this is a really interesting insight into the challenges that a lot of us face with test automation. And with this, I'd like to invite Vidur to give us some context about our customers' objective and how Avo partnered with them on their transformation journey.
Thank you, Raman. And thank you all for being here with us this morning. So a little bit of context around CNA Financials. So CNA is one of the largest insurance companies headquartered in Chicago, and they had a new CIO come in, Jane Purcell, with a mission to transform their technology teams into an agile model. Like most large enterprises, they work in the traditional waterfall model of software delivery. And in today's day and age, with all of the new fintech players emerging, CNA Financial needed the ability to really churn out product on a monthly or even every 2-week release cycle. And they wanted to do this, so they moved from a traditional project-centric delivery model to a product-centric delivery model. One common challenge that a lot of large enterprises face compared to newer age fintech companies is they're stacked with a whole bunch of legacy old technology. And this is the same case at CNA. They had the mainframe applications, they had desktop applications which are home built, they had various other new age technology applications as well, like a Salesforce, along with core applications like a Guidewire. And as these teams started to build out functionality in the agile format, they ran into a major challenge around testing in these short windows. When they did not have the ability to test in such short windows, often they ran into situations where code would be pushed to production, which may not have been of the optimal quality. And that's why they decided to really embrace test automation with Avo. One of the key aspects with CNA, and I'll have Jane speak a little bit next, but one of the key aspects with CNA that they enjoyed was the fact that we enabled end-to-end business process testing. And what I mean by that is, no longer are you limited to just testing an application or a subset of an application, but you can actually test the entire business flow to make sure that the application, the functionality that you put into production works end to end for that entire transaction, right? So without further ado, let me also play a short video showing the experience from Jane Purcell herself on her experience working with Avo so far. There we go, Armand. Thank you for letting me know. I could hear it on my side.
And I'm happy to share how things are going. Let me tell you a little bit about CNA and my vision for IT within CNA. CNA Insurance is a commercial insurance carrier in that we sell to businesses versus individual people. Founded in 1897, we currently insure over 1 million businesses and professionals from our 67 offices around the world. I joined last year and brought forth a new agenda for technology and IT. My agenda included transitioning from project-centric delivery to product-centric delivery. So instead of traditional waterfall delivery or delivery leveraging great agile practices, but in waterfall constraints, We needed to continue the great progress that the organization made before I joined and really move toward a more true agile delivery model. This would allow us to enable our market and business needs faster and in a much more responsive way. We chose Able Automation to help us achieve our goals in application delivery by automating the QA step in the development lifecycle. In just a few months, we've achieved a lot. So our goals for this were to really start supporting that transition that I mentioned from project-based to product-centric and improve our software delivery and our quality overall with less defects and faster time to market. We needed to enable true DevSecOps by increasing the velocity and the frequency of our automated testing, which would allow more frequent deliveries, of course, into the market. We had to support heterogeneous automated testing across multiple platforms, web, mobile, mainframe, desktop, you name it. If it's a technology, we probably have it somewhere inside CNA. And then, of course, bottom line, we had to reduce our costs and our overhead of maintaining multiple automation tool sets. So what was the solution? The solution was to start with process discovery. That allowed us to document our process and save time so that when we started actually doing the automation, we had it built. So we went through and efficiently documented those process workflows and then automated our application and business level testing of our top 24 business critical applications to accelerate delivery and amplify our quality. So far, it's been a great experience working with them. Really collaborative and very smooth. We've been able to enable rapid automation because Avo Discover and Assure work together. That's allowed us to expand our automated functional testing at twice the rate compared to what we were able to do before we began working with Avo. We've also expanded our DevOps and in partnership with application subject matter experts, filled in multiple gaps in our existing test coverage. At the end of the day, we're already seeing, after again, just those short 8 months, a steady reduction in costs, which of course is allowing us to deliver the best return on investment that we could. So let me give you a little bit of glimpse into what's next. At the end of the day, we need to continue promoting a community of testing that spans common standards, best practices, tooling, and of course, cross-team collaboration. And Avo has been key for our success in that area. So this is our progress so far, and we're really thankful for it and for our partnership with Avo.
So that was a quick snippet from Jane about her experience with Avo and kind of summarizing the transformation journey CNA has gone through, really embracing Agile with test automation. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague, Chris Horn, our head of product marketing and customer success, to show you a demo of the product, along with address and bring up some of the pain points which we address for CNA and various other clients. Chris, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vitor, and thanks, Lisa. And as always, it's great to hear from Jane. When you think about what has been described so far, right, the needs, the challenges that CNA has had, you get a sense. And what I also find interesting is the polling question, right? The results of the polling question really intertwine some of the significant challenges and ultimately pain points that everyone tends to experience when either implementing test automation or when test automation's not yet implemented, at least to the fullest. And as Jane noted, Vitor mentioned this as well, that the breadth of technologies that often businesses have, and maybe they don't start this way, they come through acquisition, so it's not necessarily organic, it's acquisition based, but these do represent additional root cause challenges that can alter your testing approach, right? Let's face it, web is different than mainframe. And so you need a test automation platform that can support that full breadth of need. Many businesses don't necessarily start out that way, but as they start to adopt, gain control and responsibility for these other applications, they start looking at the end-to-end aspects and needs relative to their test strategy and test execution plan. They find very quickly they need this breadth, and CNA was no different. And when CNA also moved towards a agile testing approach, right, development and ultimately testing approach, They then began to see, without a test automation platform in place, additional burden and challenges coming to bear. And that was lower productivity initially occurred, again, because of the fragmented testing approaches that they had in play relative to the applications. And they were also exceeding their timeline expectations, right? So their sprints weren't ending on time, either due to delays in getting tests designed, authored, as some might say, and ultimately into a deployed state for execution, or there were quality issues as a result that once they got testing together, they then discovered our quality isn't there. So there are a number of layers of challenge that can be brought to bear here. And with that, let me show you an example visually of how this often looks in your classic bell curve, right? And many of you within said development teams or within projects often look at these and see, look, as a project is in development, an application is in development, that change, well, it brings defects. We don't want it to, but it does. Change does. And of course, we want it to be manageable, and it is, right? Speaking positively. But the big challenge that QA testers have when it comes to design is, and the team suffers from this often as well within an agile environment, is can we get testing started quickly, right? How do we accelerate the creation of tests early on? We're talking the next day after the sprint planning session or sessions have concluded, right? And in environments where you do not have test automation in play, this acceleration does not exist. It typically does not exist, and it did not with CNA either. And so as you can see on the front end, there was a delay in getting those QA team members engaged within that sprint actively so they could start quickly and easily taking the necessary steps to start building out their tests. And some of you may be saying, well, wait a minute, UI doesn't get developed overnight, and the development team is working on that. I would agree. That's very, very true. But with Avo automation, we actually can alleviate that. And we did with CNA. And as Jane mentioned, provided great value relative to not only coverage end to end, as well as accelerating tests in an ongoing sense of net new projects. All right. And when that delay occurs, as you can see in the typical case, you end up with release readiness issues. And I say release readiness issues because timelines get compressed. There's always time pressure, right? We don't want to admit that there is. And then quality, or maybe the lack thereof, starts to creep in. And it often is because our test cases do not cover the full basis of change, right? That represents the development effort that was truly undertaken and the change relative to enhancements that were brought forth. So this gap really begins to put pressure and hence generates that performance, lower performance that I mentioned earlier. And again, we see delays and unfortunately sometimes see quality issues creep up, right? And do you go after quality, which one is geared towards, all teams are, and at the cost of maybe delaying the project. So with Avo automation and what CNA saw when they brought in our test automation platform that does provide the end-to-end capabilities that fit their need, cross applications, and I'll touch on that a little bit later in my presentation, we were able to provide a very large coverage to suit their needs overall, not just on a project expansion or growth basis, but also overall. This includes the end-to-end testing that they so desired, but were unable to reach and get to. And so as you'll see here, the gap was closed on the front end. And I'll show you how, give you an example, a little snippet of one of the capabilities that we enable. We provide and enable QA testers to be able to get a jump start. Again, that acceleration factor is so important. Well, the development team is, well, developing, but creating a web application, as will be my example. Maybe the UI is not release ready yet within the team. They haven't hit that milestone. But this doesn't mean the QA team or membership within sits around and doesn't or can't create tests. We enable that ability. And the advantage there is not only can this have a very positive and significant effect on the overall coverage, but in the end, towards the end of the project, you're dealing with less quality issues, right? So those rank 1 and even rank 2 defects are mitigated earlier on. You want to catch those early on in the development process so that later on, as velocity has occurred within the overall project, you're dealing with release gap related issues, which are much smaller and far easier to manage. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and sort of start to set us up for the demo that I'm going to show you. And in this regard, I'm going to give you a baseline example of a funds transfer application in Avo Assure, obviously where the demo will occur. This funds transfer application will represent a baseline of a test plan that's already in place. So this is the part of the application that's already undergoing testing in an ongoing regular test execution manner. And then we're going to have that boom effect, right? We have a new sprint that's occurring and the team is in planning and preparing. And now the team needs to start the sprint and move towards, well, completing the sprint relative to the release timeline that's expected. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the demo. I'm going to switch over here to my demo video, and I'm going to fire us off. We're going to start with that baseline that I mentioned. Okay, and here is our test plan in Avo Assure. And one of the things I want to first point out is not only is it object-based and graphical, visually based, but this allows for the planning side to, and the planners, those that are responsible for this, to get an understanding up front as to the extent of what needs to be considered for test, right? So you can have a module, which is what our top object is here as well, and then n number of scenarios. Now I've kept it simple, right? And I'm not going to walk through, well, all of this in great detail, but let me give you an overview here. We're showing a scenario which is our funds transfer scenario, our single scenario. And underneath that, that scenario has a number of different screens, right, with objects on it. And within each of those screens, we have different test cases, okay? And each of these, well, would be different, right? We have a login screen, right? We have a home screen. We have an actual transfer screen where the details would be collected relative to our transfer. And then we have a confirmation screen, a button example on there that is part of our existing test. Now, again, this is already released web UI. So it's part of our current test plan, and we're constantly testing this, again, in a regression-oriented sense, but within that nightly, daily, whatever that window might be, we're performing this test. But again, as I mentioned, we're going to have this event. We want to enhance this application. And so when that occurs, right, there's sprint planning, as I mentioned, right? What are the enhancements, right? What are the extent of the enhancements relative to stories? What is or will be the enhancements and changes to screens, new screens, fields, et cetera, and that teaming exercise to which the QA team is part of, they will learn those various elements, and they'll know those in advance. With Avo Assure, they can start to take action again immediately, which greatly accelerates the test creation cycle, the authoring cycle, and gets them into the testing phase once that UI is ready very, very quickly. And I'm going to show you this throughout the demo. This is a key part of the demonstration. So with that, now the QA team or a team member is now going to add to our existing test plan. Quite simply, we have a new web page, and it's a loan application, very simple one again for time purposes. And what we've done is we've added we've branched out this test plan. We've added a screen, right, and a test to this, and we're going to capture some objects eventually, but build some initially, and I'll talk through that. Before I jump further into that detail, I want to point out something else that's a powerful capability with Avo Assure that's greatly beneficial to, well, all teams that are testing focused, but certainly within an agile world, right? With an agile world, you can have a single located team or located teams that are across the globe, right? And they work interchangeably, either to work on a 24/7 basis, leverage the around the clock benefits, and when it comes to development, and really tighten not only development windows but also test windows. We support that as well. We have really two different types of tasks or tasking that we allow a QA manager, or those, maybe it's a scrum master in this case, to support the QA effort. Task of design and execution, you happen to see execute selected here at this moment in time, but when either task is selected, you can then choose who to assign it to. So it could be somebody on a given team locally, maybe somebody in Los Angeles, and another team member could be assigned somewhere else, anywhere in the world, that are part of the overall sprint development and QA test plan. And you can set a start date and an end date. This allows them to orchestrate their schedules and set expectations for when these test cases, scenarios, whatnot, need to be built, right, to keep you within that release timeframe. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move us along here. So what we're going to do first, as I had mentioned, is, again, remember, we don't have the UI released internally yet. Well, what do? But we want to get this QA team moving quickly. Well, we have the ability of creating objects for temporary purposes in preparation, right? So we're pre-staging these objects that are going to eventually show up on screen. And as we're doing so, we're giving it a name, and we're also assigning a type of object that we know it will be. How do we know this? Because of the sprint planning session that's already occurred, okay? And you see now that we have those objects that were created. We're now going to move into the test case design process. And as Lisa mentioned, right, we're a no-code based test automation platform. And you're seeing this here in that we're applying keywords and associating those to objects and stepped activities, right? We're also applying, at least from a single input sense, the data that we're going to use. Yes, we can data from a test data management platform, as well as other forms, database directly, or a spreadsheet if need be. We're very flexible there. All right. So now we have a moment in time that's occurred, right? So we've pre-staged, just to sort of take a step back and bring things into perspective. We've pre-staged what we anticipated the UI to be relative to what this release is about, releasing this new web page. And the QA team, taking action immediately, has now pre-created these objects, not just the scenario, the screen and the objects, and also built the test case, right, using those temporary objects. But this powerful moment in time has occurred where the development team has said, hey, look, obviously for internal pre-release purposes, we have completed the UI, and now it's ready for the QA team, okay, and other team members to begin their next steps to finalize their work product, right? What they need to deliver within the overall sprint team efforting. And so the development team has passed this on to the internal team, and the web UI is now available. So let's go ahead and take a look really quick at what that web UI looks like, this new web page. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll take the simple step of mapping everything over, essentially completing our test. So again, it's a simple application for time purposes. We've got a branch location, loan amount, right? And then an email address that we're collecting here as part of the process. Obviously, in the real world, it's probably going to be far more extensive. And that's okay, because there's no limit to the temporary objects that you would create. There's no limit to the number of screens or scenarios that you could develop. Test plan and how you would augment that or add is really endless, right? But simple to manage nonetheless. So here's where the magic comes in, right? We have our temporary objects. We now need to bring it into the real world and infuse it into this newly released application. So what are we going to do? Quite simply, we're going to take our pre-built temporary objects, which you see shaded in purple. Those are our temporary objects. And we're going to map those, associate those to the actual application. For us with Avo Assure, what you're about ready to see is common practice in terms of the simplicity for how you can create a test case and design it using the screens, the objects, fields, other elements on the screen, and pull that in relative to our no-code test automation capabilities. Now, also on the far left, you can see here that there are numerous browsers supported. Something else I want to point out, make very clear, I'm going to use Chrome, but we support all of the major browsers. And we do so not only in our intelligent capture capabilities, in other words, what you're about ready to see, identifying the screens, also the objects within, but we can also do this across these various browsers. And you can append and add, right, at any point in time, which gives that QA test team throughout a given project, and even extending, which often is the case with web pages, applications of all sorts, where even minor changes might just be an augmentation of an existing screen. You can go in and easily add. If a new field's been added, you can jump in and just add that field to that test case, right? Add it to your test design, and you're quickly and easily into and at a point where you can put it into production for testing, right? So we give great flexibility around this. The other thing I want to point out is our object reusability. We have great power in being able to do that as well, which also helps accelerate test case creation and the management overall of test cases. All right, so with this, let's go ahead and start our mapping exercise. I kind of had to slow this down a little bit because it happens so quickly and so seamlessly, right? So we're first going to go ahead and capture the fields, right? And underneath this, we're capturing the screen. We understand the screen technology type. You can see the difference now between our temporary objects and our captured objects. And our scraped or captured objects are showing up on the left, and you quite simply just drag and drop them over and on top of the temporary objects. And now we've mapped those, right? Essentially replace the temporary object with the screen object, the screen-based object. So now it's infused in such a way that that object is part of our test design and plan throughout and managed accordingly. Okay. So now at this point, right, you would now be able to go into our original test design and literally start debugging. Why? Because those temporary objects are now replaced with the captured objects, and the UI is available, and you're able to immediately start testing. Okay, so with this, I want to jump over to another very interesting capability that literally leverages our computer vision that you just saw within Avo Assure. And Jane mentioned this as an accelerator, a very powerful accelerator that allowed them to really get out of some of the messy situations around lack of coverage, cross technology challenges that they had. So we have Avo Discover, which is a product that allows business users, really any users, to actually easily and quickly capture screens, objects, and all that is tied to the workflows within, and thus be able to use this for two purposes: documentation and as an enabler to auto-generate test cases. And CNA utilized this to get a leg up very quickly on test case coverage limitations that they had. So I'm going to go ahead and take us over to Avo Discover and show you what that looks like. And you're going to see great similarity here, right? Again, we're using that same computer vision technology, that AI technology that we have. So we literally go to our, in this case, it's our funds transfer application that again created or was created initially. We're going screen by screen. We're selecting each of the fields. We're typing in input data as needed. And then we go ahead and stop our capture capability. And I'm just now showing you what the screens look like, how and where we captured. And we also have, as part of the workflow that we're capturing, the ability to actually update and add. And we're renaming the placeholder workflow sections. that we auto-generated within this flow, okay? And this allows not only for those that are providing documentation, but also that auto-generation test case creation. It gives you the ability to set forth markers for scenarios, test cases, and so on and so forth. You can also update, add to the workflow as you see fit, and also add the ability of other processes, right? So if you capture processes separate from this one process capture that you're seeing, you can actually stitch those together into one long, yes, end-to-end process and series of activities. And when you export that, we bring that into Avo Assure as well as part of the auto-generated test case, and the documentation is also generated the same way. And quite simply, when you have a final result, you merely click the Generate Document button at the bottom right corner that you see here, and we will export out into either PDF or Word document format. So one gives you finality, the other gives you flexibility with Word to further edit. Again, this is where the tech pubs or documentation team membership really can see benefit within an agile team environment, where now they can even use this product to actually quickly jump in as a documentation tool and solution for producing, augmenting, and getting their documentation at a point to meet release expectations as well. So they're no longer a laggard in that sprint process, just the same. As you can see, just a little bit over to the left from the export or generate document, there's the export to Avo Assure. And that, as I mentioned, is how you would quickly and simply export to Avo Assure to auto-generate a test case. So with that, I'm going to jump over quickly to my slide deck again and just finish off with really a summary of the Avo Assure test automation platform, right? And I've touched on a few of these areas as I've been speaking throughout the demo, but I wanted to make it really clear that even though you saw our web capabilities, right, at least a snippet of that, as I mentioned, those capabilities, that same experience, right, simple and seamless, is also applicable across a number of other technologies, application-based technologies, from desktop all the way through to mainframe, and yes, Citrix as well. The reason why I bring up Citrix is because Citrix is often a challenge that if you're using an algorithm that doesn't apply image-based AI and other types of technologies, you can't do it, plain and simple. We do with our Iris engine. And our Iris engine, which is a second part of our computer vision capability, allows you to capture objects on screen. It could even be the whole screen, relatively speaking, that enables you to add an element, an object that is image-based, and include that into your test case as well. So Citrix is supported in that regard, and we have a number of customers that are using that very successfully. Just a quick overview. Again, we're no code. We have over 1,500 pre-built functions, keywords as we call them. And you probably are wondering at this point, well, wait a minute, you have 1,500, but when those drop-down lists of keywords were shown, it didn't look like that list was endless. There weren't over, hundreds and hundreds to select from, and that's because we know in advance what that application type is and the object type, and so we're constantly filtering that list of keywords to, again, make it easy, quick, and fast for that QA test designer to be able to move forward very effectively in their test design process and not bog them down into having to find something in a list and so on and so forth. So we're doing that behind the scenes intelligently as well. I did note the debug. I didn't show it, unfortunately, again, for time purposes, but we do have an on-demand debug capability that occurs in the test design module. And as you saw with the browser support, you can pick any of the browsers that are available to you, again, that we support quite broadly, and just say, how does this work on Chrome? How does this work on IE? So very, very flexible, common, intuitive environment to enable that test designer to be able to move fluidly and quickly when creating their test design and designs overall. And lastly, but Lisa mentioned this on the scale side, right? Of course, you can run or execute a test locally, right? It's an extension of the debug that I just mentioned. But can I do that end to end? I can. Can I do that end to end with scale, right? How can I distribute my testing and run in parallel? Because one of the big challenges that occurred at CNA, we see this with a number of our customers, is it's all great being able to do some of this quickly, right, on the front end. But as I'm testing, right, as this application or these applications are evolving within and across these agile sprint teams, can I do this end to end within the time, the test windows that I need? Think about this. You think about this with locality and even globally. If you have a team that's bringing change and perhaps maybe bringing some defects on a daily basis, I want to run a slate of tests when they're sleeping, right? When they're not working, okay? So that when they come in the next day, we can see what that net new difference and change is, positively or negatively, and enable them to take action quickly. We allow that and provide that as well with our smart scheduling capability. You can create pools, to which, again, this gets to that scalability where multiple VMs can exist within the pool, and we will smartly determine what within a pool that VM is available relative to your test needs, and we'll schedule that to fit your time window as scheduled, as selected, okay? When you think about the bigger interconnected environment the development teams work within, we support and are very friendly with our pre-built integrations with a number of those platforms that are around us and we fit within. We're very focused on test automation and making it simple, quick, and easy for the QA tester and team to build and execute their tests and manage that is being tested. But we also are very aware that we need to integrate and share information with other platforms as well. And as you can see, somewhat towards the middle here, we support a number of different integrations, even to the point of version control capabilities, which of course is hugely important when we think about the degree of change that one test case or a test plan from another would bring forth. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move us over to a really important area, and that is extension to all of you on this webinar. And I want to thank you so much for your time. I'd like to extend to you a 14-day assisted trial for a scenario of your choice. Probably can bend our arm for a scenario or two in addition, right? Talk to our sales team about that. And the way you get a hold of us is reach out on info@avoautomation.com, or frankly, just go to our website and request a demo. All right? So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Armand for what I'm looking forward to, some very active and engaging Q&A. Armand?
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. That was a really insightful look into the challenges that CNA faced with test automation and how we solved them. And now let's move on to the best part of the session where we answer your questions. If you have any more questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat as we go through and we'll address them. Now to start off with, Jason asks, can your product handle dynamic objects?
Yes, absolutely it can. So we're not the technologies, right? That AI computer vision based technology that I've referred to it a few times, but during the demo is not position sensitive at all. So we are able to handle objects that move on the screen or can move on the screen. And in fact, I'll give you an example. I didn't call this out on the platform slide, but we support the Salesforce environment or platform. And recently, the Lightning design approach or methodology to that platform, which does have dynamic objects. So I bring that out as a reference to our support for dynamic objects. So yes, absolutely, we do.
Okay, thank you so much. And Tom asks, can APIs be automated as well?
Yes, and thank you for that question. I skipped over that on the platform slide as well. Yeah, so even though we are no code platform, and you got again a quick little snippet of how that would work with keywords. We also have keywords that are custom based, do not require or lead to writing code, but they are built in such that we can design and perform API testing. And the other thing I'd like to make mention of is, you might have seen this on the slide in terms of the technologies that we support. We not only support SAP, but we support Ariba business objects. That's another example of providing that support, which is API oriented within our no-code test platform.
Got it. And Abhinav asked, do you integrate with other agile CI and CD platforms?
We do, most certainly. Might have seen some of those on the list. Jenkins, as an example, Jira, right? So yes, we do. And quite frankly, our support is deep there. But it's always interesting because as we talk to prospects, they bring up new platforms that maybe many of us aren't aware of, but it's important to them. So my reason for bringing that up is we always have an open eye for new cross-platform integration support that we need to bring forward. And we actually have a base level open API that we utilize and we provide, which essentially always provides that open capability initially, and then we take that and create a pre-built tighter integration thereafter. So that kind of gives you an idea of the flexibility we give at a base, and then that tighter integration that we hone in based on the need and specific capabilities that we've learned and or our customers have mentioned as we've engaged them.
Okay. And the next question that has come in is from Ranjita, who asks, how much faster can you automate with this product versus other tools on the market?
Approximately 4 times faster. And that's what CNA has seen, and we've seen a number of our customers see the same. And in fact, I'll go a step further with that question, kind of a part B I'll answer and put out, and that is when you look at and consider our automation capabilities and how quickly or rapidly we can accelerate the creation of tests, we can move from a very low, maybe sub 25% coverage state up into the high 90s relatively quickly as well. Okay, so we've got a couple different ways that we would go about that, but overall it's about a 4x faster clip.
Okay, great. And we have a few more questions that have come in. Pallavi asks, is your product truly no code?
No, it absolutely is. And in fact, while we do have an @custom keyword, we have that there just kind of like that open API that I'd mentioned. It's rarely used in this regard. So you can actually connect a subroutine if you so wanted to. It's not required. Again, it's there only for flexibility. The 1,500 keywords, which we say 1,500 plus, right? On one hand, you might say, oh, that's marketing, right? We often are in the position we have to summarize, but we're always adding to it, right? So if you pressed me on exactly how many keywords do you have, I'd have to go back to the development team because they're incrementally always adding so that the expression and capability overall to which a tester, right, whoever's authoring and designing a test continues to have that breadth of capability as they need, such that they don't need to code or provide any coding. So through and through, no code based focus. That's our platform and our design for that matter.
Got it. And we have one last question that has come in from Jay, who asks, can you map versions of automated tests to versions of the application build under test?
Yes, you can. You can. What I would ask there is to set up a demo to show that more in depthly, because again, I gave a snippet here, but you certainly can, right? So you can you within our test planning capability, you can create a branch of the tree that represents one, if you will, version, and create, in fact, you might even do this at a module level, right? So there's a couple different ways we give you flexibilities for doing this. I'm thinking this sort of off on the fly here, and you can bring those modules into play to show a sequence over time. So I'd love to be able to demonstrate that more in depthly and would like to get further time to do so, but yes, we do.
Thank you, Chris. And Jay, please do reach out to us via the website if you'd like a demo. And I think that is a great place for us to wrap up, folks. Again, if any of you have any more questions at all, please do not hesitate to get in contact with us. The email you can reach out to is info@avoautomation.com. Also, just as a reminder, we'll be sending out an Amazon gift card as a thank you for you attending this session today. And just to reiterate, please do reach out to us via the website or email if you're interested in signing up for a demo or a 14-day free trial. And I'd like to end by thanking our speakers, Vidor, Chris, and Lisa, for a great session. And once again, I would like to thank all of you for joining. See you all in the next one.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe, please. Take care.